Today's video is sponsored by Storyblocks. Hello and good day, my name is Brady, and thanks for stopping by the classroom. Feel free to take your anger out on the like and subscribe button I've got down there just for you, and let's go ahead and dive in. Many of you have asked me to recreate Hollywood scenes and show you how you can light them and set them up, or how you can take tips from them and integrate that into your own work. So you asked, I listened. Go ahead and check out Sarah and I's take on The Social Network's opening breakup scene. So why here? Why do you want to meet at the first place that we ever met?
I believe everything goes full circle and things should end where they started.
What do you mean?
I'm breaking up with you.
Wow, this is just all... Okay, why?
Where do we even start? You're lazy, you're inconsiderate, you're completely self-absorbed, and you never remember to put the toilet seat down. I fell in 5 times this week.
Well, I'm sorry I don't own a rowboat.
What?
Now we're even.
You know what? Call me when you start Facebook.
So no, Sarah did not break up with me, but yes, the toilet seat does stay down. But all things aside, talking about this scene, before we jump into everything, let's go ahead and talk about a few things. The opening scene from this film, as well as the entire film, was beautifully shot and beautifully done. So let's go ahead and take a look at this grab and talk about, even before the lighting, let's go ahead and talk about the lens choice. And the cinematographer Jeff Cronenweth and director David Fincher both decided to shoot this entire film at T1.3. So very, very shallow depth of field. Looking at this frame, my guess is that it was shot on a focal length probably between 50 and 85 millimeter. I may be wrong, but in my case, I'm shooting in a very tight space, so I can't get far enough back with an 85 to get a wide enough shot. So I used my Super Takumar 51.4, and instead of having it wide open, because this lens wide open is just incredibly soft and I want to retain some sharpness, I moved it just up to about 1.8 and stopped it down a slight bit. We're still gonna have that blurry, shallow depth of field that we're going for. And then one more thing, since we are kind of still in a pandemic, I cannot shoot in a bar nor have extras in the background. So shooting in my home in the kitchen shall suffice. Framing wise, we're just looking at doing a traditional over the shoulder type of conversational shot, going back and forth. And to make this easier, since we don't have a lot of gear, a lot of lights and cameras to work with, we're gonna start with just shooting my side and shooting at me, taking care of that shot, and then inverting that and shooting Sarah's side of things afterwards. So we're gonna talk about the difficulties that we may run into when switching that, and also some things you can kind of cheat the system a little bit to make this transition a little bit easier. So all in all, we're only using 3 lights on this and 1 camera to get this entire look. Now let's talk about the lighting in this scene first, and then we can bring in our lighting from there. So looking at the frame, we've got a lot of ambient bar lighting throughout the whole scene. It's very smooth and soft throughout the entire frame. And we want to remember to light spaces, not faces. Of course, we want to make sure our subject is well lit and looks nice, but we need to make sure that the space looks great as well, and the entire bar atmosphere is filled too. So let's check off ambient room tone lighting as something that we know is very important. And then moving into our talent, into our subjects, we see that the lighting itself is very soft. It's very smooth. You've got a very smooth roll off from the highlights across into the shadows across the face. So we know that we need soft lighting, but we also know that we have a far side key. So soft lighting and upstage lighting is very important for lighting our subject. And then last but not least, you also take note of that little rim light that you've got on the back of the shoulders and the back of the head and the hairline that really is just gonna separate our talent from the background. So the ambient room tone, the soft upstage lighting, and the rim lights are 3 main talking points that we're really gonna dive into and hone in on to get this exact look. So diving into our version, I set the framing up to be as similar as I could given the circumstances, obviously with that shoulder raking in the foreground into our talent, whether it's me or it's Sarah, as the main focal point. And now it's time to bring in our first light, which is our key light. And for this, I use the Light Panels Gemini 1x1. And that's a very soft light as it is. A panel is gonna give you a soft source. So I use that. On top of that, I also put a DOP Choice softbox as well to soften the light a little bit more, because we really want the soft upstage lighting. And then I put that camera left just out of frame, acting as our far side key, or being our far side key, coming in, getting that roll off across the face. So now we're really starting to get the look. And then one more thing I did just to soften the light up one more step. So I put just a white sheet hanging over an arm right over the softbox. So now we've got the light and the softbox and one more layer of diffusion. So now our light source is going to be larger and even softer, and really giving us this smooth, soft, ambient look that we're going for. And if you don't have these particular lights, that's completely okay. The really important part to follow is getting this diffusion, softening your light, putting diffusion in front of your lighting to really get this ambient look that we're going for. And one more thing that I want to note is that this light was set to 3200 Kelvin because a lot of bars will have this dim, warm lighting, and then my camera's white balance was set to 3500. So just a little bit warmer, so you still have this overall warm feel to the scene. But if you don't have any bicolor lights and you're stuck with just daylight fixtures, you can still get the same look by adjusting your camera's white balance to say 6000 or 6500. So it's still overall a little bit warmer than your light source, and it's gonna have the same effect. So with just the key light in place here, it definitely still is looking a little bit sourcey, a little bit dark in the background, and we wanna be able to change that. And remember, we talked about the rim light that was used to separate the talents from the background and pull them out. So that's gonna be the next light that we're gonna add here. And again, I'm gonna use a Gemini 1x1 set to the same color temperature of 3200 Kelvin. And I took this light and I snuck it just camera right, hidden right around the wall on a stand, rigged out on an arm so it's a little bit more overhead. And to avoid the light spilling throughout the entire frame and bouncing off walls and ceilings and all of that, I used a honeycomb grid just to control the light and just keep it central towards going on the back of my head, my hairline, my shoulder, and even a little bit on Sarah's shoulder in the foreground as well. So with the two lights in place, it's starting to look really good, but the background still does look a little bit dark. And although the key light spills a little bit into the background, and if you don't like that, you can definitely flag that off as well. I just left it there for more fill. But one more light that I took to the background was a light panel's Astra 6X, again 3200 Kelvin, color temperature, and I put that behind a very large white sheet. And I did that just because large source is ambient, it's gonna be soft, you're not gonna see shadows as much. So I put that camera left as well, kind of matching the direction that the key light is coming from. So everything is coming from the same direction. And I just put that subtly in the background, just very dim. And remember, you don't want it to look lit, and you don't want the background to be even brighter than your subjects are. So just a little pop I used there. And then I also just turned on the light that was in the background because it might just add a little bit more depth or be a source of motivation for all this ambient lighting that is in the scene. And lastly, for my shot, because bars typically do have this gritty, hazy atmosphere, I took the fog machine and just filled the background with a good amount of haze, and this did a great job of adding grit, adding texture and some atmosphere, and absorbing all this fill light and just keeping this kind of ambient glow throughout the room. So before we dive into switching the inverse shot to Sarah, let's go ahead and take a look at the progression of the lights that we added, getting it the look that we have now. And I do want to take a quick break just to mention the sponsor for today's video, Storyblocks. A lot of times as creatives, we have client deadlines, we have budgets, and simply just do not have the means to fulfill our crazy creative visions. With Storyblocks, those visions really can come to life with over 1 million royalty-free stock assets for you to choose from. You can take your projects really to the next level without breaking the budget. It's full of an insane amount of stock footage options, sound effects, and plenty of other great elements without even having to leave your desk. And with the unlimited downloads and great affordability Storyblocks offers, it's really a great tool to have on your belt, and it's a fantastic one-stop shop for all of your project needs. I'm gonna leave a link down below for you guys to go check them out, but let's go ahead and get back to our episode. So quite frankly, a lot of us, most of us, don't have access to a ton of equipment in the best spaces. So these talking back and forth dialogues can become really difficult. So instead of just lighting the entire scene, we lit my side, we shot my side. Now let's move the lights, let's move the cameras, and tackle any obstacles that can come from that. Immediately when setting the frame for this inverse shot, I already ran into an issue that you run into when working in tight spaces, and that is there's a wall where my camera needed to be. So what do we do to fix this and avoid that and get the shot that we need? Well, honestly, it sounds simple, but I just moved the chairs about 2 feet to the right, and now my camera can squeeze in there and get that over the shoulder shot that we needed without anybody even noticing that the chairs were moved. And doing little things like this and little micro adjustments when switching the shots is okay if it works in your favor and helps you get the shot and helps it look nicer, because most times nobody's gonna know the set and how it was laid out, and if so, they know the behind the scenes. and it's not gonna matter. So little things like this can really help you in the long run by making micro adjustments to the scene. Now, as far as the lighting goes, we know we're adding a key light, a rim light, and a fill light. So I'm kind of gonna speed this up for the sake of your time since it's gonna follow the same framework. As for the key light goes, I shuffled that a little bit more on the front side of Sarah just to get that wrap around her face and not be as side and backlit. And I actually had a bar right next to me, like a shelf or a counter right next to me, which made it extremely difficult, again, working in tight spaces. So I took that light and just stretched it as far as I could over the counter. And then I took that layer of diffusion and put it right in front of that. So now the source is a lot closer to Sarah, and with that diffusion over the arm, it didn't make much of a difference at all. The only thing that was different in this shot is I took a white bounce card and I put that on Sarah's shadow side just to fill in a little bit more of that shadow side. And a lot of the times I'll do that just to add to the innocence of a character. Get rid of some harsh shadows, make the skin just a little bit softer and smoother and more innocent. So that's the only thing that I did as far as the key light. Now that the key light is moved and set up in place, as for the rim light, I brought the same setup, the C-stand, the honeycomb, the light panel setup around, and I brought that right behind Sarah, pretty much overhead. And if I was working in a larger scene with actual extras and a whole bar, I'd probably bring this rim light to the back of the room, so then you're getting this edge light on everybody and everything in the scene. But since everything is downscaled, I felt it was fine just to leave it there right behind Sarah. And then as for the fill light, I brought that back into the other room that you see over Sarah's shoulder, and I just put that right behind the same diffusion just to soften the whole room up as well, and then added some more haze just to add to the grittiness, the bar feeling, so on and so forth. So let's take a look at everything on this side of things and see how we got the look on Sarah's side of the dialogue. Before I let you go, I want to talk really quickly on coloring and color grading because obviously this shot did not look like this right out of camera. You kind of have to stylize it to get this exact look. So I got it like right there. I was so close, but I'm not a colorist at heart. So I called up my friend Jake and I was like, hey, you want to help me out with this? So him and I kind of worked back and forth together just to get it this exact look, or as close to exact as we could get it. And it's really important to either practice your coloring skills or have a colorist or a colorist friend and work with somebody that's really good at coloring to get the exact look that you're going for and the stylized look in all of your films and projects. But that really is all that I have for you guys today. Again, I know it was a lot and I know it was a lot of information, but I hope it was really helpful information. And if you would like me to do more of these shot recreations, leave a comment down below if so, and also leave a comment of what scenes you would like me to recreate and do on the channel here. So that's all that I've got for you guys today. Take care, be safe, I'll see you next week. Class dismissed.